and banned from Rome. Some say he was excommunicated, but really the way it works in the church is you excommunicate yourself. So for all intents and purposes, he was excommunicated, where he lived out the last part of his life basically in exile. And the Perones. The Perones helped a lot of Nazis as well. That's why they went to Argentina, because Juan Perón and his wife Evita were basically National Socialists themselves. They believed in the Nazi philosophy, which is interesting in itself because, Eva Perón, who the people called Evita, wife of Juan Perón, actually co-president of the country, not legally, but she was the first lady who held a lot of power. And basically, Evita Perón was made out to be some type of a heroine. Oh, an Argentinian heroine. They even made a musical about her. Evita, don't cry for me, Argentina. The Perones were socialist, National Socialist monsters. And for some reason, many people have just elected to see them as patriots and nationalists for their own country and lovers of the people. They were Argentinian Nazis, folks. Same thing goes with the knothead kids or knothead people who wear the Che Guevara shirts. Che Guevara was not a visionary revolutionary who's trying to right wrongs. Che Guevara was a racist murderer. And anybody who wears a shirt with Che Guevara on it and doesn't know the history of Che Guevara, just like the Perones, you need to educate yourself. You really do. But I wanted to do this again. Like I said, why did I choose this for the topic of today's essay? And it has to do with the fact World War II ended in 1945. So quick, do the math. That was 75 years ago, 76 years ago, folks. That was a long time ago. And while I grew up, World War II was very much in the forefront. When I was born, the war just ended 14 years ago. Okay. The people who were the captains of industries, the movers and shakers, the ones who made the decisions were the World War II vets, the guys who were there. That's who ran the world. So I heard things firsthand. I was there. I saw this. Not I read it in a book. Not I heard a guy talk about it. Not I saw a movie about it. I was there, and this is what I saw. Virtually all my bosses growing up working in the machine shop were World War II vets. Today, most of them are dead. Soon, they'll all be dead. Think about it. The war ended 76 years ago. If a soldier was 20, he's 96 now. People live a lot longer than they used to, but if the youngest World War II vets are 96, in the very near future, there'll be none left. And what happens if you have no living survivors to give you a first-hand story of how things happened? Then history becomes fuzzy. It becomes skewed. It becomes different in translation. And what I mean by that is, and many of you have probably done the same thing. If you talk to someone who fought in World War II, if you talk to someone who personally experienced it, it's a first-person description as to what happened. I did this. I did that. I saw this. I experienced that. Now, this podcast is, okay, I heard a guy talk about stuff that he read about, okay? That's third-hand at best. And while I'm not doubting the accuracy of this podcast, it's accurate as far as the documentation that I could find is accurate. I didn't experience this firsthand. And history, like anything else, is written by the victors. Now, am I trying to insinuate that because we won the war, the Allies won the war, that the history was written in a certain way? No, I'm not saying it was skewed. But what I am saying is written word is different from a first-hand experience. And it's almost like the Nazi war criminals of the past. I mean, virtually they're all dead now. The last one I think was who was that guy? Dugmagin, who was a Ukrainian. I think it was a sergeant in a concentration camp, but he was in his 90s and he came to trial and basically didn't know what was going on and soiled himself in the trial. Okay, and they figured, okay, yeah, this guy's guilty, but we're not going to put him in prison. I mean, he's just too old for this, and he's since died. They're all dead now, and that ship has sailed. But it did happen. It really did happen. And I'll go back to our first story and the whole deal in Afghanistan where we're pulling out our troops. The United States was involved in World War II from 1942 to 1945. 3 years, not 20 years. And everything was done in 3 years. Whereas in Afghanistan, after 20 years, we're no closer to a solution than we were 20 years ago. And again, I'm not saying we're doing the right thing by pulling out, but I don't know what else we can do. And we can talk about that firsthand now because there are a lot of veterans who served in Afghanistan and can come back to tell that story. My great-grandchildren will not know that story firsthand. To my great-grandchildren, that story will be the same as World War II. Yeah, maybe they knew people who did it, but they were older and now they're all gone. The reason for me even mentioning this at the end of the podcast, if you get a chance to hear a first-hand story from anyone on any topic that even remotely interests you, if you think this is a credible individual, listen to him. Because quite often, a first-hand account is very, very different from what we read about in the papers or the magazines or the internet. Certainly different than what we hear on television or radio. Absolutely different from what we see in the movies. A first-hand account is always best. Take advantage of it when you can. Well, that's it. I'm done. JamesStrongShow@hotmail.com. That's the email address. Send me your email address, and when you do, I will go ahead and put you on the mailing list. I will send you a link to the podcast upon publication. You can download it and then listen to it at your leisure. Go to Spreaker.com. Couple hundred podcasts there you can look at. It's funny because as I look at my history on the podcasts, every single week I get 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 podcasts that are downloaded from earlier this year, last year, even 2019. People are downloading podcasts and listening to them from years ago. And the topics are pretty self-explanatory. So go to Spreaker.com, take a look at the topics, and see what I've talked about in the past. It can be a lot of fun. And again, download it. You can listen to it whenever you want. On a walk, sitting, relaxing, driving in your car. If it's downloaded, you can listen to it without the internet. So there you go. Well, that's it. I'm done. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. Check me out anywhere you get podcasts. And again, I'd love to hear from you via email, JamesStrongShow@hotmail.com. Until next time, this is James Strong saying, adios.